So will any more of our rogues die this season? Hey everybody, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we're here with my blind reaction to Batman Caped Crusader Episode 5. We're at the halfway point of the season. And we've been introduced to a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of setup with different things such as the mob and Harley and Quinzel, and just the Gotham City Police and everything. And at this point, I'm just kind of wondering, what is all this setup going to lead to? We're at the halfway point, so we should probably get something big to just like kick off the second half of the season. But I'm not going to just necessarily expect it. A lot of shows do that, some shows don't. It just depends on the series, and I don't know if this series is going to be one to do that. If it's going to kind of really kick things into overdrive now that we're halfway through. There's a lot of room for more villains, a lot of room for more police chases. Just, we've got to deal with the fact that Bullock and Flass are now leading the investigation and everything against Batman. So, yeah, things are not looking great at the moment, but I like kind of the direction it's going nonetheless, because it really sells Gotham City by the fact that everything is, going wrong. Shit's kind of fucked, and that's how it should be. Gotham City is supposed to be a really messed up place with a lot of horrible shit going on. And it's not always the villains themselves. Sometimes it's the police. Sometimes Batman just messes up. There's a lot of different things that can cause it. And I'm very curious as to what we're going to do with that this time. As usual, I know nothing going into this. I've kept away from all spoilers as best as I could. Let's just see what this episode of Caped Crusader gives to us this time. Cutting in here real quick to remind you of all the awesome content we have on the channel. Between Monday and Friday, we have a plethora of awesome series reactions with 2 on Wednesday. We also have movie reactions every Saturday and Sunday. I do pre-record them during the week, but I upload them on the weekend. And don't forget all the gaming content we have both on this channel and the secondary Princess of Gaming channel. We have Horizon Forbidden West every other day and Baldur's Gate 3 every single day on this channel, while we also have Nier Automata every Saturday on the other. And don't forget to click the link down in the description below to get to today's reaction. I redirected just due to copyright reasons. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you want to see more awesome content such as this. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get on to the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, little fun fact before we get this started. Actually, there's a couple things. Let me start with this. It is pretty dark outside right now. Like, it's overcast. Like, it looks like it's going to rain again. I think I mentioned, was it in this or was it in the other, today's other reaction for Scavengers? One of them, I think it was Scavengers. I mentioned there was a big storm last night. And there's a lot of cloud cover right now. I definitely think it's going to rain again. But if I were using the old camera, my old webcam, the one I've been using for, a couple years now, this would be very dark. Like, it would be notably dark, what you're seeing on screen right now. But this webcam has, like, some dynamic lighting adjustments to where it actually adjusts for whatever the lighting around me is. So even though it's like, it's light enough for me, like just visually for me looking around and everything, but for you it would normally be dark, but because of this camera's adjustments, it makes it visually light enough again to where it doesn't feel distracting, and I don't need to like grab my ring light or anything from over there. Just really interesting thing I wanted to point out. That being said, so as you know, the Joker movie sequel is coming out this year, Folie à Deux. It comes out this year, and it involves Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn. And there was this news that came out from, I believe, Todd Phillips himself, where he said, like, okay, the Harley Quinn we have in this movie is not going to be the Harley Quinn you know. Not like with the jokes, the gags, the goofiness, the silliness, and all of that. It's like it's not going to be like that. And a lot of people have been bitching and complaining, saying like, oh, then it's not Harley Quinn. You're taking away everything that makes her Harley Quinn. And it's like, my dude, where was this energy for the Joker? You weren't complaining, you weren't bitching about this interpretation of the Joker being so excessively different. But when it's Harley Quinn, suddenly it's an issue? I wonder if there's a reason there. Like, if there's some different factor between the Joker and Harley Quinn that causes this issue, that causes people to want to complain and whine a lot more. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say, really. I'm obviously being sarcastic here. Yeah, it kind of makes me think that there might be a little sexism issue here, because a lot of people, anytime a female character, especially in comic book movie, like just notably so, is changed in any notable way, they'll find a reason to bitch about it. If it's not the exact interpretation that they like grew up with, they'll bitch about it. But a male character can be reinterpreted to hell and back, and they're fine with it. They're completely fine with it. They have no issue whatsoever. It's like, why is that? Why can the male character be reinterpreted but the female one can't? It's got to be sexism, right? Like, there's no other logical reasoning for why people would do that. And people like bitching about this interpretation of Harley in the upcoming Folie à Deux are also people that I've seen complaining about Harley's depiction in this series. Now, again, I knew she was going to be more serious in this, so that was never a spoiler for me. That was kind of a selling point of this series for me, honestly. And so I had heard people, like, when this came out and before I had seen it, and just in the week since I started reacting to it, because people, binged through this series, I had heard people, like, saying that they don't like Harley's reinterpretation. They also said the same thing for the Penguin. Because a lot of people were pissy that a male character was made female. But, if a female character is made male, they just don't give a shit. Again, it's sexism. But, seriously, it's like these same kind of people, and there are people who are fine with it for both this series and Folie à Deux. And I'm one of those people, but I'll get to that in a minute. But there are so many people who are bitching about it. And I'm sure it's the vocal minority. It's just a very loud group of the least amount of people who are interested in either series or movie. And it's not like a wider, like, expression of how the overall DC Comics fandom is. Or, to a lesser degree, Batman fandom. But still, they are being extremely loud about it. Like, anytime I've seen any kind of post or trailer or anything for Folie à Deux, I've seen these complaints. A shit ton of them. And I've been seeing it, again, a lot with this series. Because if they like a female character, they don't want her to have any kind of different interpretation or depth added to, or any kind of different version. It's the same kind of bullshit, by the way, that happened with stuff like the She-Ra reboot, She-Ra and the Princess of Power. Remember when that came out and people were bitching about like body diversity and stuff? They were like being pissy because all of the characters didn't look like a 5'9" busty hourglass shaped model with absolutely no diversity in body shape or, well, design really at all. People were bitching because, like, Glimmer, for example, was short and thick. Or because Adora wasn't super feminine and stuff like that. It's the same kind of bullshit. If these characters don't live up to their, like, standards, they're not good. And don't get me wrong. There are examples where I have admittedly gotten upset by that, and I realize that I'm wrong for doing so. For multiple reasons, one of which is that reinterpretations of characters should not only be celebrated, but almost required. What I mean is that when someone else takes the reign of a series, or a movie, or something that is supposed to be doing its own take on characters that we have grown to know and love and whatnot, it should be done differently. And sometimes you might not think that reinterpretation works, and that's fine. But don't knock it just because it's a reinterpretation. If you just aren't a fan of the way it's been done, that's okay. You can voice that. Just don't be an asshole about it. And don't blame, like, the idea of reinterpreting it as a whole. Big example from recently, the Velma series. You know, that absolute dog shit animated series that is probably one of the worst, if not the worst animated series, period. The Mindy Kaling self-insert Velma series that everybody bitches about pretty equally. Well, the issue was not the reinterpretation of the characters. The issue was not that Velma is a person of color, that she's, mixed race, or that Daphne is, or that Shaggy is. Racial diversity, stuff like that, the designs, things like that were never the issue. The issue was the execution of the series. The writing, the dialogue, the quote-unquote humor and everything, that was the issue. The voice acting to a degree as well. It was never the diversity. But there are people out there who blamed that. Even before the series came out and everybody knew how fucking terrible it is, people were saying it was going to be bad just because, the Mystery Inc. gang were all, white. I literally saw those complaints all over the place. But the issue, again, was never the diversification of it. But people act like it was because there are people out there, whether it's just wanting to let racism or sexism or stuff like that show, or whether it's just them, being able to be terrible more anonymously, or stuff like that. The point is they get to do this without really any repercussions. And it sucks. Because they unfortunately are, like, veering people's thoughts towards that. It's like someone will see that and go, like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Maybe there's a point there. It's like, no, there's fucking not. You're just letting this person get to you. But unfortunately, it's a thing that happens. People are very easily, like, manipulated into thinking in these ways through stuff like this easily. And especially if it's like some kind of creator or something online who has influence. It really sucks, but it's absolutely a thing. And the problem is that people just refuse to, like, look at it as anything else than, you know, their standards not being met. People bitched about Lois Lane's depiction in My Adventures with Superman because she's, you know, a woman of color, because she's tomboyish, because she's not this tall, like, hourglass figure, dark or black haired bombshell like she's normally portrayed as. You change anything about her and people are going to bitch. And I know I'm going on this really long-winded rant about this, but it pisses me off. Because it's like, again, the same people who are bitching about, like, changing Harley for Folie à Deux are the same people bitching about changing her for this. And like I said, I'm on the other side. I'm one of the people who not only aren't bitching about this, but applaud it and think it's necessary. Because again, when you're reinterpreting a work, especially in the case of something like this series that reinterprets a lot of the Batman mythos and timeline and various things like that, you want to do the character extremely differently. Because it sets your version apart. The Harley in this is, yeah, she's nothing like the Harley Quinn we're used to. The one that debuted in Batman the Animated Series. She's nothing like that whatsoever. And that's a good thing. The Harley that Lady Gaga's playing for Folie à Deux is going to be nothing like the classic Harley Quinn. That's a good thing. It allows some diversity and everything. And don't get me wrong, I love it when a series or a movie or whatever that is adapting from previous works and stuff, I love it when they can keep that accurate to the source material. That's great. But I also want some changes. Like, I didn't bitch about the changes in the live-action One Piece series. In fact, some of them, I feel, are better than the original story. It's just, you have to look at it with an open mind. Harley Quinn's portrayal in this series as this serious, dark character, this psychiatrist, which that's normal for the character, she's always been one, but to have her using that to manipulate and brainwash these people into, like, these weird, subservient man-children versions of themselves is wild. It's so creepy. It's so dark and serious, but also silly at the same time. Like, it's still silly, but in a very serious way, which is wild just as a concept. Jamie Chung does an amazing job portraying this, because you see throughout the series, as we continue to see Harley more and more of her accent comes out. She becomes a little more bubbly and whatnot in her personality. Especially when you see her interacting with Barbara and Renee. And then here, when she's in her Harley Quinn persona, she's serious as fuck. Her voice is deeper and more, like, intensely focused. Her accent's practically not there. And she's scary. And I love that. It creates this dichotomy with the character that I just absolutely adore. It's like two sides of the same coin in a way. I know that's more Two Faces thing, but you get the idea still. It shows that while Harleen has been, criticizing Bruce and others for kind of having this dichotomy within themselves and not like acknowledging it, not, you know, not really being willing to, work on it and fix themselves and everything. She's hypocritical. She's facing the exact same thing she's accusing others of. She has the exact same issue going on. And by the way, she abso-fucking-lutely knows Batman is Bruce Wayne. That was made very fucking clear. She was literally mentioning, like, the fact that she was working with him for the police. She mentioned about his childhood trauma and everything. She just 100% knows. I don't think she's going to tell anyone because I don't think she has a desire to or a need to. But she 100% knows, and that's fascinating to me. Because that's not usually a thing. And it's not like Batman's identity has never been known before. There's plenty of villains such as Hugo Strange, Ra's al Ghul, and various others who have discovered and even kept Batman's identity secret. Like, they've known it and just never said anything. Like, that has happened plenty of times. But the way it's being done here with this reinterpretation of Harley is good. It's so good. And there's, like, little things, too. Little Easter eggs, almost, sprinkled throughout this episode. Like, with the one man-child she has, who she was, like, feeding peas to. She's like, oh, like, get this guy to give up his worldly positions, and I'll give you pudding. It's like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We get that joke. We get that reference. We understand what that means. The mallet is a great touch in that regard as well. And various things like that. It's just like you get like glimpses of like stuff you recognize, iconography and whatnot that just goes with Harley Quinn. But at the same time, it's put in here in a very different way. It's a very different take on it, and I love that. I really think that's a fantastic way to handle it all. And like even the music, it's like you get the like creepy circus music and stuff. It's so good. I also like her like connections with both Renee Montoya being, a love interest and Barbara Gordon being her best friend, because it's like these are characters who she's had connections with in comics and other adaptions and stuff before. Like Renee Montoya, for example, was in the movie Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. That's the title. It's such a big title. Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn had Harley, it had Cassandra Cain, it had Renee Montoya, it had so many of these characters, awesome female characters. And I still think that movie's great, by the way. I don't give a shit what anyone says. But so it's like, even in that, you saw like Harley and Renee Montoya together. Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, has had a lot of history with Harley Quinn. I mean, hell, both of those characters have been voiced by Tara Strong at one time or another. But it's like, they've worked together, they've fought each other. Even in the Harley Quinn series, they have a notable connection. So it's like, these are the right characters to pair her up with here. And again, I mentioned this in like a previous episode with the like hinting at her and Renee's possible relationship and stuff, which came to fruition in this one. It's like both of them are queer, so it works. Harley Quinn is bisexual and Renee Montoya is a lesbian. It abso-fucking-lutely works. And I like, by the way, that despite, like, the time period this takes place in, they didn't try to make a big deal out of these two, like, being together, going on a date or anything. Barbara had no issue with it. No one brought it up at all. There was never any like, never any problems from anyone. They didn't even, like, try to have, like, some homosexual, or not homosexual, homophobic character in here to, like, play off of them, like, while they were on their date or anything. Because, one, it just wasn't necessary. And two, it's like, why? Why would you want that in the context of this series? It wouldn't work. I also like that this Harley has absolutely zero connection to the Joker, because that's a very different interpretation. And some people don't like it when that kind of thing happens, such as the Venom movies, with Venom having no connection to Spider-Man. But again, it's dependent on how it's done. With the Venom movies, I actually don't have an issue with that. I don't think it really affects the movies one way or the other. The movies have other issues, but aren't really connected to that at all. So that's not an issue for me. I don't mind that she's, not connected to the Joker here. In fact, I actually I like what they're doing with this instead. She's not, like, crazy. She's not, like, insane like Harley is usually portrayed. She's not even really a villain. She's, again, more of a vigilante here. Though her actions are obviously definitely taken further than Batman's. She's trying to do what she sees as good. She's trying to help people. She's just twisted with it. And I think that's the right way to do this kind of interpretation of her. It makes her stand out a great deal. And it was very obvious even before, like, the call to Renee, which I'm glad that they didn't try to, like, hold off on that or keep that a secret. It was very obvious she survived. Like, no question. It's interesting, though, that she's, like, just leaving Gotham for the time being. I'm wondering exactly how this is going to go. So is Renee going to find out about what she did? Because Barbara, I think, would keep that a secret from Renee. But Batman, I don't think, would be willing to keep that a secret. So I'm wondering if this is even going to get out, or if it's going to be, like, hidden that that Harley Quinzel, became this villain-like vigilante and everything. I wonder if that's going to be kept a secret or not from just the general public. I'm very curious, because outside of Renee having a slight connection to things, the police weren't really involved in this. It was entirely Batman, Barbara, who's a lawyer, and it's like, again, I don't know if she's going to actually tell anyone, even Renee. So I'm very curious as to how that's all going to go down. Yeah, this was wonderfully done. I don't know if I'd say this is the best episode of the season, but I'd put it up there with episode 2, with the Clayface episode. I do think it's better than the last episode, the Firefly one, which was really good. Really good. But it wasn't quite up to the same level as the Clayface one was. But I would put this one up with the Clayface one. It's just, I'm not sure which one I like more at the moment. I mean, it's just my first viewing. I'm going to see it multiple more times, so... One thing I do want to check real quick, though. We did this last time, and I want to keep doing this for each episode. I want to know what the title of this episode is. We're going to do this each time, but I'm not going to look up, like, any episodes past the one we're at, of course. So, just as a reminder, episode 1, the Penguin one, was In Treacherous Waters. Clayface's was And Be a Villain. Then we had Kiss of the Catwoman, which was the only one so far that actually told us who the villain was going to be. Um, After that, we had the Night of the Hunters. This was the one with the police and Firefly and all. And this one was called The Stress of Her Regard. Again, does not reveal like anything really about the episode. Like, the only thing that this tells us is that a female character is going to be extremely important to it. And stress is a connection. You could maybe view that as like being interpretive of Harleen, being, you know, a psychiatrist and everything, but I wouldn't have put that together. If I had seen that title beforehand, I would have like not known what that meant. I mean, I could have thought it meant Renee because of, you know, her job basically being taken by Flass and Bullock. I could have easily interpreted it as that, or something involving Barbara, or it could have been something else completely. But I'm really glad that it was Harleen. I'm really glad we got it, and I like the Tutankhamun guy. I like how, like, after Barbara said Harleen's name, he like kind of started to repeat it back, except he cut it down to Harley Quinn. And I don't even think I don't think Barbara fully realized that, by the way. Because she's like, Harleen Quinzel, and he's like, Harley Quinn? It's like, I don't even think she was technically going by that name. At least it didn't like specifically state as such. But also, I like the fact that he said like it's the name felt good, like coming out of his mouth and stuff. It's like it does roll off the tongue a lot better than Harleen Quinzel. Just to be fair. But yeah, this was great. I mean, look how much I've had to talk about. I had this entire massive ass rant about like interpretation of character and stuff. So it's like, or reinterpretation of character rather. So it says a lot of how much I like this episode by just how much I've had to say. Though that's not always the case, I guess. I guess I could have talked about it a lot without liking it. I guess. But I liked it. So, there. Tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Batman Caped Crusader? And as always, no spoilers. Do not spoil me on anything going forward. I want to remain as spoiler-free as possible with the rest, especially going into the second half of this season. So thank you in the meantime, everyone, for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts on this episode down below. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.